Hello and welcome to There's No Business Like, a podcast where friends and industry colleagues explore topics and interview leaders in our industry of professional theatrical touring. Hello, Katie Miller.
Well, hello there, Danielle Van Hook.
And hello to all of our listeners. Myself and Gal Pal Katie, your most favorite ladies of the pod, are here this week to prep you even further for the upcoming conference season.
That's right. This week, we are bringing you two shorter conversations with friends of the pod, Haynes-Hamblin and Larry Kosson, who both spoke to Kevin on the topic of mentorship. They talk about mentoring at conferences, long-term industry mentorship, and give excellent advice to those seeking mentorship in a variety of ways.
That's right. And if you want to hear more from our guests, you can check out my conversation with Allie in episode 74 and Josh's conversation with Larry in episode 14. A whopping 78 episodes ago. And thank you, Katie, for fact-checking that for me.
You're very welcome. And if you're missing the boys, don't worry. There's going to be a Kevin sandwich in this episode, and you're going to hear from Josh and Brian on the other side. So we hope that you learn a lot and enjoy the wit and wisdom on offer this week.
Ready yet? Here we go.
Cut to music.
I am Allie Haynes-Hamblin. I'm the Executive Director at the Charles W. Eisman Center for Performing Arts in Richardson, Texas. I also have the pleasure of serving on the board of the Association of Performing Arts Professionals and California Presenters as their Vice President and Treasurer, which I know is weird because I live in Texas, but that's the way it goes.
Excellent, Allie. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. Today, we're here to talk about mentorship and really kind of a focus on, how to be a mentor and what that sort of looks like. Allie, how did you get started mentoring individuals in our industry?
So I really got started by seeking out mentorship myself. As somebody who had moved from the producing side of performing arts and the creating new shows side into the presenting realm, I really sought out some mentorship from my colleagues in Arizona, which is where I first started in the presenting field, and then got involved in some more formal mentorship opportunities, such as the Western Arts Alliance had a group called 35 Below, which was not a formal mentorship program, but kind of a committee and a gathering of folks that were coming up into the field and that wanted to learn more and connect with other young people, but also connect with people who had an interest in helping the younger people kind of get their foot in the door. And from there, I had the great good fortune to be able to apply to the mentoring program at California Presenters. Being based in Arizona, we were members of California Presenters. When I first started attending the California Presenters Conference, my boss, Corey Baker, was on the board, and she helped design and help them create this mentorship program. So I applied for it and was accepted into it in I think the second or third year of the program, and was granted with a year-long mentorship with Dale Franzen at the Broad Stage. It turned out to be a year-long mentorship with the entire staff of the Broad Stage, which was incredibly awesome. And I learned so much. And from that point forward, every time I went to a conference and was registering, there's always a box that says, would you be interested in being a mentor? Are you interested in having a mentor? If I had never been to that conference before, I would sign up for a mentor. But if I had been to that conference, then I would say, sure, I'm happy to, mentor a newcomer to the conference. So that was really kind of my first start into kind of that more formal mentoring. But I realized pretty early on that, throughout my career, I had a lot of mentors that I may or may not have recognized at the time were mentoring me, but I realized as my own skills and acumen and comfort level in the field grew, I realized how much I had learned from previous colleagues and managers and producers. And, sometimes you learn what you want to do and how you want to react to a situation. And sometimes you learn what you don't want to be. And that can also impact, the way you move forward in your career. So I have been very lucky to have all different kinds of mentors, mostly the kind that I emulate and am really proud to be associated with.
Yeah.
So
I think you touched on something really interesting there, and that is the mentors that we don't quite realize are mentors until later in our life. You know, the people that you are, their colleagues, their friends, but you start realizing like, oh, that was probably one of my first mentors. So a lot of that is, you know, through those conversations and the things that you've learned from them. One of the things I was really curious about, when you sign up for a conference, like you were given those options, you know, being a mentor, being a mentee. Do you remember the first time that you were like, yes, I will be a mentor? Because I remember that moment because I was like, I don't know that I should be doing this.
Right. I think that I do. I have a memory in my head that's like, yep, that was the first time. The one that I feel like I'm pretty sure was the first time was the Western Arts Alliance conference. And it was a conference in LA. A first timer signed up to be a mentor and was connected with me. And her name was Julia Diamond, who has gone on to do incredible, amazing things in the field. I'm so, it's just been so cool kind of like growing up with her. And I remember like our first conversation, I was really nervous. Like, what am I going to say? Make sure you have granola bars in your bag and never forget a pen. Like, you know, it's like, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? And we had just the best conversation. And, you know, she asked such great questions that I think I was able to give her some helpful suggestions. And basically what she asked was like, I'm representing a brand new venue. I'm, you know, have created this position for myself at Grand Park, LA. And I'm going to this conference with this venue that has never been utilized before for arts. And I'm really struggling with how do I kind of describe this and how do I let agents know that I'm here and we want to do stuff and we want to book artists. And I said, you know, a lot of agents will give you a roster of their artists and there'll be a little description of what they do and maybe something about their outreach. I said, what if you made just a one-pager, almost a rack card about your venue, the size and the type of programming you're looking for and, you know, some photos or something. And she was like, oh, that's a great idea. That's such a great idea. I'll do that. I mean, I think that worked out pretty well for her, but it's one of those things that throughout the years, whenever we reconnect, we always talk about that. And she was just like, God, that was the best advice. And I'm like, you know, it was really garden variety advice, but I appreciate so much that you have such fond memories of that. You know, and now she's like a vice president of tons of amazing art at the Music Center in LA. So it's just like, holy cannolis. What a cool experience to have had this long-term relationship with her. After that conversation was just like, okay, I think I could do this. I think I'll be all right. I'm not going to lead anybody too far astray, hopefully.
In sort of our industry and in this conversation, I think that there are sort of two types of mentorship. I mean, there's probably multiple, but really, I think we sort of split those into two. And one is sort of that conference mentorship that we have talked about, that many of our industry have been involved with. And then some of that is long-term, you know, reoccurring mentorship. And sometimes, you know, the conference one turns into that. I want to talk about, in your words, in your mind, what are the key differences in those two types of mentorship?
For me, the biggest difference is looking at the different mentorships that I've been involved in that were, you know, quote unquote, just conference mentorships. That's been kind of more of like let's have a quick conference 101. How should I behave? What should I prepare for? You know, give me some tips and tricks and send me on my way. And maybe we'll connect again in the future. And, you know, but thanks for the help to kind of have that push off from the shore. Like, here you go. Now go sailing and hopefully it works out. Whereas kind of those long-term relationships are more about, let's reconnect, reach out to me halfway through the conference. Or, you know, there are some formal mentorship programs where you really like, you want to continually have check-ins with this person, or it's just a fact of the environment that you're in. Like, this could be a colleague that you encounter on a fairly frequent basis. And so you just kind of automatically have these organic check-ins over time. I think a lot of my mentorships have been more like that, where like, okay, I see this person, you know, several times a year, or in the case in the arts in Arizona, like the arts presenters in Arizona might as well just all move in together in a big old lodge because they spend so much time together and it's wonderful. And so that, you know, that really helped foster for me kind of those long-term relationships, as opposed to a conference mentorship that was just, how about this? How about that? You good? We're good. Okay. See you later. Let me know if you need me. Otherwise, we're good.
Yeah. So Allie, as we're leading into sort of the conference season, people are registering and, like you mentioned, they're being asked, do you want to be a mentee? Do you want to be a mentor? And I think that there's a lot of people like me who, when they see that, sort of the first thought that I have is like, what do I have to offer? I mean, the reality is like, I've had a decent amount of time in the industry. I've been to lots of these conferences and, I can pass off that advice, but sometimes I doubt that. What do you think makes a good conference mentor? Like, what are the checklists? What are the things that you think will help the mentee the most? So that maybe if we've got somebody listening who's sort of on the fence, they might go, oh yeah, I can do that.
In my mind, I think probably the simplest and also one of the most effective things that somebody can do as a conference mentor is to help introduce their mentee to as many people as they can at the conference. So like if you're coming from an area of the country where you've got, everybody in your state consortium, you've got a new mentee, that's something that's really simple to like, hey, meet Jane Doe. This is her first time at the such and such conference, and here, meet my colleagues at the art center down the road and the art center 30 miles away. And just making those introductions, I think, is a huge help in having that mentee feel not so overwhelmed at the conference and giving them, more and more familiar faces as they walk through the conference. That to me is a huge aspect of your first time at a conference that feels so overwhelming. Who are all these people? Everybody knows each other. Everybody's hugging. I don't know anybody. I feel intimidated. Like, what's happening here? So even if you just meet 5 people your first day, that's a huge leg up because you will definitely run into them again. And then the second thing after that would be just kind of sharing your strategy for, how do you take notes in a meeting? Or if you're an agent manager, how do you approach the pitch with a presenter who's in your booth? Do you just launch into pitch this, pitch this, pitch this, pitch this? Or do you build a relationship and start a conversation and then come around to an artist that you think would be a good fit by the end of your meeting? Either approach, I think, is totally valid, and you can share that strategy so that your mentee hopefully learns a handful of different strategies and they can kind of formulate what works best for them. But that introduction thing is, to me, I think that's the most beneficial, and pretty much anybody can do that, right?
I also think that one of the key things to being a good mentor is just listening. People have questions and sort of being that reassurance of like, look, we were all new once. So like, there is no stupid questions. Feel free to ask me these things because this is a safe space and I can help you navigate that. Or sometimes when I can't help you navigate that, typically I know somebody who has or who could be able to do that. And I think that that's a big thing that oftentimes we overlook. It's the knowledge that you have gained over many years that just becomes second nature. It's been a long time since the first time I laid my eyes on a contract. I remember the first time it was overwhelming, but now I'm like, oh, okay, like here's the things I need to look for. Here's the things that I, should really pay attention to on my first glance, like that sort of stuff. That just becomes second nature in our industry. But for somebody who is brand new to the field, that can be daunting and scary.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, definitely.
Do you have recommendations for somebody who is a mentor at a conference, how often or at different times they should check in or reach out to their mentees?
I'm a huge believer in having one phone call or a Zoom chat or something about a week before the conference, just beforehand, having that connection. I think that's super helpful. And then I would say, meet up that first day. Oftentimes there's a new colleagues session that you can meet up at, so it's kind of facilitated for you. And then the ideal would be kind of either halfway through or near the end of the conference, just to have a touch in, even if it's a text or a phone call or passing, in the expo hall. Hey, how's everything going? You have any questions? Is there anything that's tripping you up, or how you feel? Just how you feel. Have you had enough water today? Are you are you eating? You've taken lunch breaks, right? Simple stuff. And I think that's kind of the ideal, because it is overwhelming. So you want to give that person time and space to sort of feel it out and find their own rhythm, right?
Absolutely. Do you encourage people to check in after the conference?
I do. I find that for me, I will absolutely check in with a mentee after the conference if we've made a connection and had 2 or 3 check-ins during the conference, and they've forthcoming with questions, especially if they have a lot of questions. Then I'll definitely follow up afterwards and just say like, hey, okay, you've been home for a week, you've digested, you're probably unpacked your bag by now. Like, how do you how are things going? How you're feeling? Not always, but typically I'd say probably 75% of the time I do.
Yeah, that's a good point, because sometimes people sign up for a mentee, sort of as you implied in the beginning, because they want to know the lay of the land of a new conference and sort of figure some things out. And then once they get into the swing of it, they're like, okay, like I've got this. But then there are some of those mentees who are brand new to the field or are brand new in a certain position. And so they've got a lot more questions, and you sort of create that rapport during those meetings. That's a great point. In regards to some longer term mentoring in our industry, obviously people can just ask people once they sort of make that connection of like, hey, would you mentor me, and sort of set that up. What advice would you have for maybe a mentor who has been asked by somebody to do that? Like what advice would you get them to, sort of create those regular check-ins, that sort of stuff?
My biggest piece of advice, whenever somebody asks me, and I've had a couple of different people ask me, if I would mentor them, my first question is, absolutely, I'm happy to. Is there a specific goal you want to work towards that I can help you with? Or do you just want a sounding board, somebody you can check in with that can kind of help you with your development along the way? And then based on whatever that answer is, then I'll say, shall we set up some regular check-ins? Do you want to just reach out to me when you need some advice? And, here's all my contact information. I kind of like to ask those questions and let the mentee guide the process and guide the journey that we have, because, they're the ones that are going to, really drive what they want to take out of it. And then inevitably, as happens with pretty much any mentorship, the mentor ends up getting quite a bit out of the relationship as well. So while I say, like, I let the mentee sort of drive, it's like, well, I might be doing a little bit of backseat driving as I ask some of my own questions and get some cool perspective from them as well.
Leads me to my next question. Why are you a mentor in our industry?
So I am a huge believer in serving the field and giving back to this field as much as I can. I feel unbelievably fortunate to have been able to make a lifelong career in the arts and to be able to pay my bills and have insurance because of my job in the arts. I know that that's incredibly rare, and I'm incredibly fortunate to have found myself in that situation for so many years that I almost feel like it's my duty to serve the field back and, do everything that I can to help the next generation of arts administrators and creative professionals to be able to take the field even further than we are right now. One of the things that drives me bonkers about the performing arts field is that there's not a lot of formal structure or education as far as, the development of young people into these roles. And so it's very easy for an entire generation of arts administrators to repeat mistakes of the past. And it's like, let's build upon the progress that we've met, that we, the older generation, I can't believe I just said that about myself, let's build upon the progress that we've made and help give that next generation the best foot forward so they can take this field into directions and realms that we can't even imagine. And so that's so corny sounding, but truly, like, that is why I still serve on the board of California Presenters. I've gotten so much from that organization. I'm absolutely going to give back as long as they'll allow me. And that's why I still mentor at conferences and when people just ask me individually, because I love it. And I feel really proud of being able to help the field continue to move forward and innovate into the future and not spin their wheels or continue mistakes from the past.
Allie, is there anything else regarding mentorship that you would like to share?
Honestly, the only thing that I can think of is you don't have to have just one mentor at a time. you can gather a huge group of mentors. It's, there's a African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise, arts presenters and arts administrators and creative professionals. And I think, for me, it's been so beneficial to really capture the knowledge and the support of as many mentors as possible. So don't limit yourself. Don't feel like, well, I can't, I'm already working with this mentor. I don't want to cheat on them with another mentor. That's not a thing. Take on, as many mentors as are willing to share their knowledge with you.
Allie, thank you for your time, and thank you for all that you do for our industry and for all the mentees that you have helped bring up.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm Larry Kosson, and I'm the co-owner, Robin Spielberg, of Kosson Talent. Honestly, I don't remember when I started mentoring. I do remember my first mentor. That was Liz Silverstein, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but she was a legend in our industry. And when I first attended a conference back in 2001, she was assigned to me. She led me around that conference for almost the entire week and introduced me to just about everyone that she knew. The conference itself really didn't have an organized mentorship program, from what I recall. It was really just a kind of introduce yourself to a person who was assigned to you. And we sat and talked for a while. And I do credit her with guiding me into leading our business from just me representing Robin as one artist into a full-blown agency representing, at one point we had 40 artists on our roster, and we've grown up, and then we've reestablished, and now we're down to about 10 artists on the roster. About 5 years after I first started attending conferences, I started mentoring other people. I felt like it was kind of time at around 2005, 2006 to give back and kind of pay it forward.
When you started mentoring, was that through conferences and then, expanded into past that, or how did that begin for you?
Well, even before I attended conferences in my previous life, I had mentors. I had people who guided me and taught me how to basically do my job, do what I was doing. And my transition into becoming an agent in the late 90s and the early aughts, as we call them, was basically looking to other people with more experience to help me understand the best way to approach my job. So in that first year, there was a sign up when I first started mentoring other people. The conferences reached out and asked people to mentor. I actually signed up at, I think, 3 of the regional conferences, and I mentored at APAP as well. I mentored at all of them. And in that very first couple of years, it was strictly conference-based mentoring. It was, we'd go to the conference, there would be an hour-long session where we'd sit at a table. There would be kind of a led discussion by leadership at the conference, and then we'd break it down into the group at the table, and then it would interact with the individual or the individuals who I was assigned to. But even before that, there would be the names and the email addresses, and often the phone numbers would be given to me, and I'd reach out to the person that I was assigned to weeks before. And I would try and reach out at least 3 or 4 weeks before conference, just to give that person time to ask the questions, to figure out what they needed to do to prep for the conference, and maybe have one other check-in a week or 2 before the conference to say, what are your questions? I think it's really important to understand that most people who are attending the conference that are looking for mentors are usually going to these events for the very first time. And that means that what those of us who have attended for a very long time and done multiple conferences, we take certain things for granted and don't even think about how to navigate these events. And so it's really important to kind of start from the base, from ground zero, and guide these folks through how give them their very best experience. We all know it's an expensive endeavor to attend. It's the registration, the travel, the hotel, the cost of meals. I think it's really important that someone who's new and laying down that kind of investment of their time, their money, their energy, that they get at least get something out of the event, regardless of whether they're a presenter, an agent, an artist, a manager, whoever they are attending. It's really important that they walk away feeling that it was valuable.
Sort of staying focused on the conference aspect of things, what advice would you give to somebody who is either considering signing up to be a mentor, or somebody may has already signed up to be a mentor?
Well, first and foremost, I remember another mentor of mine who said he used the phrase deep listening and really listen to that person first to find out what their needs are. What are they looking to do and to accomplish at the event that they're attending at, whatever conference, whether it's one of the regional conferences, whether it's the national conference, whatever event. And I think that goes for any type of conference. Understanding their goals and what they're trying to achieve is the way to start the conversation.
Is there any advice that you would have for a new mentor as far as, how many times they should reach out to their mentee, maybe before the conference, during the conference, after the conference?
Well, I think that's partly guided by the person that you're trying to mentor. I think definitely at least once, possibly twice. I do my best not to overstep. I want to give that person space. What I usually have is anywhere from a 30 to 45-minute conversation that very first time, where I let them tell me what they're looking for, and then I guide them through some of the steps that I take in preparing for a conference, whether that's doing research on the other attendees, as an agent point of view. I think it's really important to understand which of the venues, which of the performing arts centers, the talent buyers, who are the ones that make sense for my roster, make sense for me. I don't believe in the everybody could fit anywhere approach. Kevin, you know that about me. A lot of the people who work with me know that I don't believe in the one size fits all approach. Mm-hmm. And I really do the targeted effort. Now, over the years, I've worked with hundreds of venues, hundreds of presenters. I kind of know each year in and year out, who are the people that it's important for me to reach out to. And I usually tell the people I'm mentoring that the first step is to figure out if you're an artist or an agent, what it is that you're bringing to the table and who are the people that are most likely to be the likely people that it makes sense to do business with. It's a bit of matchmaking, if you will.
I would be curious to know if you have any advice for sort of the flip side of that, like any advice for a mentee going into this situation, maybe their first call with their mentor or, meeting their mentor. Is there any advice that you would give to them to prepare for that meeting?
Yeah, again, whatever homework you can do. One of the great things about where we are now versus where I was 20 years ago is the technology has advanced so much. And we have that amazing tool called the Google. And we have just about everybody has a website, especially the venues that have really robust websites. It's very easy to determine what they're working on and what they're programming. And I think that goes for just about any of us. If you're a presenter that's new to the field, it's really easy to see which rosters make sense because you can go on every agency's website and go through the artists that they represent. There's just a tremendous volume of information. And I think one of the values of the gatherings themselves is the personal, the human aspect to it, the face-to-face, the ability to get to know someone. And this is a business of trust. It's a business of connections. Yes, have we been able to do a lot of business without meeting face-to-face, oftentimes without talking to people on the phone, just through emails? Yes. However, I guess I'm a bit of an old school kind of guy, and I like to know and talk to the people that I'm working with. And I find it incredibly valuable to sit with someone and talk to them about their community, about what they're working on. So from a new person coming into this, to understand that there's a lot of questions to be asked and answered versus the other way around. Yes, having a pitch, knowing what you're talking about, and knowing that elevator pitch. Conferences are not Shark Tank. It's not like you're under pressure for 30 seconds. It's not an elevator pitch. I think I try and help the people that I'm mentoring to go in within a very relaxed understanding of what's possible and what's not possible.
I'd like to transition a little bit into sort of, some of the long-term mentoring. And I know that's something that you do. So can you talk a little bit about, the difference versus, maybe being, assigned together at a conference versus, that long-term mentorship plan?
It's happened to me a number of times, and on both sides, I currently have two people in my queue that I meet with almost on a regular basis, pretty much monthly, that we do an hour-long Zoom call. One's a presenter, and one is an artist. And actually, that artist is now on my roster. But when we first started 2.5, 3 years ago, he was an artist that was looking for representation. And I said, I don't think I can represent you, but I can try and help guide you into being ready. And so that artist, who is actually on tour now, he needed some time and he needed some guidance in kind of getting all the tools, all the things necessary together to be able to be full-time at touring. So that was a big part. And so there was a lot to explain, a lot of guidance. And I often think of that question, how do you eat an elephant? I don't know if you know the answer to that. It's one bite at a time. And that's kind of how I guide the people that I mentor, that rather than trying to take it all in at once, we just go step by step. To be honest, I've had a few presenters that I've mentored over the years. The one I'm mentoring now, I'm always still surprised when we get on a Zoom call and the questions that I'm asked. And I think a lot of it is just because sometimes people just need a different viewpoint. They need someone to give an opinion based on their circumstances of what's going on. And it doesn't mean that that other person is necessarily, not capable. It's the opposite. The one person that I'm mentoring has a PhD and she's an amazing presenter. But oftentimes the conversation, the most interesting part about it for me is that I learn just as much from mentoring as the people that I'm mentoring. And I think that's the value right there. If I were to say anyone who's considering, should I do this? Should I jump in and help other people and mentor? I say 100% yes, because the learning curve that I get out of it, the things that I walk away, sometimes just discussing what's going on in the moment in the industry is valuable.
That's an incredible piece of advice. And I think pretty common from most people that I've talked to about mentoring is just, sometimes the surprise of how much, they get out of it and how much they learn. For me, I always think about, the conversations that I have with individuals. It's, when I get to sort of teach them what I'm doing, it solidifies that for me. And so it helps me improve on those tasks as well, or gives me a different way to think about something, a different perspective, which is huge.
I think the wonderful thing about our segment of the live entertainment industry, when we talk about the performing arts and the conferences that you and I attend, it's not a strictly buy-sell. It's not a transactional industry. There's a lot of learning. There's a lot about education and community engagement. There's just a tremendous amount more than just other industries where it's really about, I need to buy 1,000 widgets and this is the cost per widget. Done. All right. Let's negotiate the cost down from 50 cents down to 45 cents per widget. It doesn't work that way for our industry. And our segment of the industry specifically, there are parts of the live entertainment business where it's just about the box office and how many tickets you're going to sell. And those are the transactional deals. That's less about what I'm interested in. I'm much more interested in impact. What is the impact going to be? And I think when I mentor people, that's something that I bring up all the time. how are you trying to affect what you're working on and the people that you're working with?
That's a great piece of advice and a great thing to think about. One question I have is, from the mentee side of things, what advice would you give for somebody approaching somebody that they have a lot of respect for to be, ask them to be their mentor? Is there anything that you would advise them to do or maybe not to do?
Well, I think that the cautionary tale is, because this has happened to me, is I've been asked to mentor and I've stepped in, and the person I'm mentoring doesn't show up to the meetings, doesn't follow through, doesn't take my time seriously to a point to give me the respect that I'm allotting time out of a busy day to be your mentor. And I think that that's a really important aspect of this, that anybody who's thinking about asking someone to mentor them has to consider that you're asking that person to set aside time without any real compensation to help them with their career. And I think it's an honorable thing to do. I fully support it, but at the same time, I think it's really important that everybody respects everybody else's time and energy, because we're all busy people. And I would also venture to say that most of us are pretty stressed and stretched to the limit on the amount of time we have and what we're asked to accomplish in a limited amount of time.
Yeah. Larry, one final question. I mean, is there anything that we haven't discussed in this short amount of time that you would like to mention about mentorship?
Yeah, no, I think that the final thing would be about post-conference. If you're mentoring during the conference, post-conference, it's always a good idea to kind of have that after conference connection and see whether, number one, you were able to help, whether there were things that you didn't say or guidance that you didn't give that would have been valuable, that maybe that'll help you be a better mentor the next time. And also kind of to get a feel for whether that person felt the event was a fit and valuable for them. And something that I've seen over the years, you see the people who return after the first time, and then you see that there are people who do not return. And I think that's okay in both cases. I think it's okay when someone figures out that the one particular conference wasn't quite the right fit. And the only way you can truly find out is by trying to do it. But the final thing that I tell all the people that I mentor is that, especially when we're talking about conferences, is that these things take time. If you think that going to one conference is going to be indicative of the outcome over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, it's not. You're starting to build a career, and building a career, and having impact within our industry takes time. So you have to give it that time. It doesn't happen just in the first round of a conference.
Larry, that is excellent advice. And I also love that your first piece of advice was, the follow-up on the post-conference wasn't about, checking in on your mentee, but it was also about learning what you could do better in the future and how to, better approach that. I think that's something that we tend to forget, is that, it's like the post-event surveys we send out for our events, it's to sort of do the same for you, to go, how can I do this better in the future? Because it does better us, but it also betters our industry. So I love that was your first thought there.
What I've experienced this year in 2024, it's definitely a more challenging industry than it's ever been. And I know there are a lot of reasons for that challenge. Mm-hmm. I think it's easy to forget that we all can be overwhelmed by technology. I mean, just the amount of emails we all get, yes, and just the amount of emails that we need to delete, and the difficulty it is to respond to everyone between email, phone call, text. And I think it's a really important thing for us all to give each other grace, because just because you don't hear back from someone, just because something doesn't go exactly as you anticipated based on a meeting that you had at a conference, there's a lot of impact going on behind the scenes. I just had a conversation with someone this morning who reminded me that we all have stuff that's going on in the background with our families and our friends, with our parents, with our children, that impact how we approach our day-to-day work. And I think that giving people grace is a really important thing in this moment.
Perfect. I think that's a perfect note to end on, Larry. So thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Kevin, for bringing those conversations to us with Allie and Larry. I've personally been coached by both of them. I've often said mentored, but now that I think about it more, it's really been great coaching sessions from both of them. But I see both of those folks, as well as many others, as mentors. And I'm sitting here with Josh, and we're just reflecting on some of the things that Larry, Allie, and even Kevin said. You know, even Kevin.
Yeah, even Kevin.
Doesn't sound great.
I just love the approach that both Allie and Larry have separately to this. One of the things that I think is really important from a mentorship standpoint with these conferences, especially if it's somebody that is new to coming to booking conferences, is to have just a quick meet a few weeks ahead, like Larry said. That way they can know to set meetings, and they can know to attempt to schedule out their time while they're there, so that they're not going in blind. If you're just meeting with them a few days before or a week before, I don't know that they necessarily have enough time to get those things in place. Knowing those things enough in advance to be able to process and be able to get ready for the conference is really a big part of that.
Yeah, and I love the idea of the conference type of mentorship, but also what Larry brought up about ongoing, just general mentorship. It's something that many new colleagues may not realize, but a lot of the state arts consortiums have formal programs. Allie mentioned the one that she participated in at California Presenters, Pennsylvania Presenters, where I am. We have one. You know, there's many all across the country, and they're wonderful ways to connect. And as Allie also mentioned, it's not just about mentoring somebody and sharing what you know, but oftentimes you learn something in the process. I mean, almost always, anytime I've been put in that position, whether it was at a conference or it was another situation, I've walked away feeling like I've gained a lot as well.
Well, and one thing that I think organizers and committee members that are part of the conference mentorship programs, I think they would love to see these become ongoing mentorship opportunities and not just a limited time conference mentorship. The real idea for this is for them to develop into a long-time mentor and not just be locked in during that conference.
I think that's definitely true, but I'll also say that there are people going to these new colleague sessions who haven't been to the conference, and really they're not all looking for mentors. I've experienced that because I've signed up to be a mentor at APAP for many years, and sometimes you do have that mentorship relationship that starts there, but a lot of times it's just how, they need to learn certain things about how to approach the conference. And so, I think it's important to have both, and it is two different tracks. And I will just say a couple things popped out that Allie and Larry said, and I just loved. I'll start with Allie talking about the rack cards for venues. I thought that was amazing, and I would love to see that. It got me thinking about, what would I put on my rack card about my venue?
Yeah, and I agree. I like that. The first thing that whenever I meet with new agents, the first thing they ask me is, what's your venue like? And if you've got something right there that present to them, and that's also a way for them to remember you. I mean, them getting presented with materials changes the entire game.
And then with Larry, the thing that I loved the most probably that he said was how this is a business built on trust and connections. And I don't think anything truer has ever been said.
That's why, one, the mentorship's important, but taking time during the conferences and actually getting to know people and taking time outside of the conference hall to meet people and engage with people and be socially engaged with people and give people your social time in those situations is so important to building that trust and building those relationships. I loved hearing from both of these amazing mentors. Both Allie and Larry are amazing people within the industry, but also amazing mentors. So we'd like to thank them for being a part of all of this. And we're so excited to have them both on the pod for a second time to kind of dive into this specific subject. As we're moving towards the conference season, make sure and check out our How to Conference Volume 2 episode. There's a lot of great nuggets and a lot of good things in there to help you get in the right mindset to get ready for conference. So check that out. Come and listen to us again. We'll see you next time.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to There's No Business Like. Our producers and hosts are Brian Zelmer, Josh Benson, Kevin Maynard, Katie Miller, and me, Danielle Van Hook. Views expressed in this podcast are ours alone and are not reflective of the organizations we are a part of. Keep up with us at nobusinesslike.com. There you'll find links to all of our episodes and socials. If you like this podcast, give us a like, a follow, a review, or our favorite, a 5-star rating. Oh, wait, what was that site? I got it, don't worry. It is nobusinesslike.com. Do I sound out bus-I-ness every time I type it? Yep, sure do. Stay in touch, my friends. Oh, hey guys, remember that time we talked about Liquid IV? It's still amazing. Check it out.
Because you know what arts administrators need? Hydration.
Alcohol.
And then hydration. Can you mix Liquid IV with your alcohol? So you're
Absolutely.
like dehydrating and hydrating at the same time. It just balances out.
Weren't you ever in college? Didn't you?
I did go to
Gatorade?
college, but
I wish they'd had Liquid IV then. All I had was
know.
just that bum Gatorade stuff.
Katie and Danielle out.